Austin housing market crash canceled? Jeremy Knight, the Knight Group, your favorite Austin realtor. I have a lot to get to because the April numbers came out and there's a lot of data here that I have to get to. So drop your comments below right now. I had to start with this article that just came out from Zillow talking about the debt ceiling debate and what's going on. We got to get to this first and then talk about the information from the housing market and how it's going to affect buyers and sellers, because it will. But this debt ceiling fight is something that could really impact the housing market. So as you know, Republicans and Democrats are fighting right now. I don't want to get into all the logistics of it. Yet, if we don't have a resolution with this debt ceiling fight by June 1st and we default, even Janet Yellen said it's possible we default on our debts, this could have a ripple effect in the housing market for a couple of reasons. So Jeff Tucker with Zillow said that he's predicting that if we don't come to a resolution, that we could see a 23% drop in home prices across the US by by next year. We're going to see 23% drop. And in this article, it even went on to say that we could see interest rates get up into the 8%. Now, interest rates we're going to talk about in this video heavily because they are impacting the Austin housing market. I'm going to get to that. But what they're saying is if we see interest rates hit up over 8%, this could spell disaster. Now, we've been looking at potentially a recession towards the end of the year, and generally in a recession, we see interest rates go down. Recently, we saw a 0.25 increase in the Fed. Now, everybody immediately thinks that that's going to increase interest rates for mortgages, but they don't realize that mortgage rates are actually tied to the 10-year Treasury, and we've been down in the 10-year Treasury. We're going to get to more of that. So interest rates have actually dropped down below 6.5%. The Treasury is coming up right now, so we may see interest rates back up into the 6.6 next week. So if we do see this debt ceiling fight pan out and we default on our debts, they're talking about 23%. And even Jamie Dimon yesterday came out and said this on CNBC, that if we keep this fight going and get closer to that January 1st date, we will actually see a ripple effect in the stock market, which will then hit housing. So that is something that we really need to focus on, this debt fight. So let's talk about the Austin numbers, because this is actually really, really important. In Austin, we saw a jump from March to April in both the MSA and in Austin in prices. A lot of people talking about the crash are talking about banks and they're talking about all these other things, but they're not really looking at the actual data. Austin in March, we were at 529 and now we're up to 565 as the median. So we saw a really big jump. Now, this is pretty normal for the spring market. If we actually compare that to last year in 2022, when we saw these gigantic increases, we went from 565 to 624. So what this actually means is that this was actually delayed a month, because last year it happened February to March. This year was March to April. Yet we are still down at 11% year over year. So what you're going to hear from a lot of these people that are using scare tactics are showing, oh, we're down 11%. Yes, we are down 11%. We are down, but month over month, we are seeing prices increase. Same thing with the MSA. The MSA went from 450 to 466. Now that is still down 15% year over year. We were at 550 last year this time. So if you're a buyer looking at this, you're going, man, prices are down 15%. I'm getting a deal. Well, interest rates still are hovering around 6.5%. So that will impact you and that mortgage rate that you're looking at. So a lot of people are still saying, though, that the market's crashing. These numbers are showing a different scenario. Although one point I want to make, if we actually look at this from the 2021, we are barely $6,000 over 2021's numbers. So it's very likely that we don't see a big, huge increase and we drop below the 2021 numbers in the MSA right here and in Austin. Austin got up to 575. So if we don't go over that 575, we could in fact see negative numbers from 2021. But what's interesting though, if we're just looking at prices, we're at 565 now. We ended last year at 555. So it's possible, let's say we stayed at 565 the rest of the year, which I don't think will happen, we would still be up over 2022 at the end of the year, because in 2022 we saw this gigantic drop of about 20%. So I want to go through the data a little more in depth, because there are a lot of things in the data that still worry me about the Austin market. If you're a buyer, pay attention to this. If you're a seller, I highly recommend you have your home on the market in the next month, because if you look at last year, the June numbers dropped off a cliff. And if you're in May listing right now, getting ready to list in June, we may see those June numbers drop off a cliff again, and here is why. If we look at the MSA closed numbers from March to April, we actually saw a decline in sales, and then we also look over and saw an increase in inventory. So one thing to think about when you're looking at the months of inventory is the fact that if you have a decrease in sales and you keep the same number of units on the market, months of inventory increases. And it's kind of what we saw here a little bit. We went from 3 months of inventory to 3.2 months of inventory. So we are still seeing more inventory. If we go look at the Austin numbers, we saw inventory increase from March to April. And if we look at the closed numbers are almost identical. We saw March at 744 and April at 740. So the sales actually stayed pretty flat. One thing I want to show you on this though, I think is really important. If we look at the Austin pending right now, we have in Austin 1,400 units pending in Austin, Travis County. So we actually have double what closed last month under contract currently. That doesn't mean that all of that will close in the month of May. A lot of it's going to close in June or maybe later. So let's say we close 900 units. That's going to be a month over month increase, which actually should be an increase because if we're looking at the years prior, we did see an increase in closings in 2021 and in 2022. So my biggest worry for the Austin area is this inventory. Now, inventory isn't massively increasing right now, but it's staying steady. So that could spell a disaster because if we're looking at the inventory towards the end of the year, we're at the end of the year inventory in Austin. In April, we were at 2,300 on the market. If we look at September, that's only 300 units below where we were in September. It's above where we were in June. Remember in June last year, we saw that huge decline in prices. So this could spell prices dropping even further June, July, August. That's if one thing doesn't change, and that's interest rates. Now, with the Fed, they have said they may not increase the next round because CPI numbers came out, the employment numbers came out, and they are all pretty positive. So if they don't increase, that may cause rates to drop. And if we do see a recession soon, we may see interest rates drop towards the end of the year. But the question is, will buyer demand be there? So if you're a seller right now, I would be getting your home on the market extremely soon. If I was a buyer right now, I would still pull the trigger on a home that fits all of your needs because you really should be buying and holding for 5+ years. If you're thinking about only holding for 2 years, then I'd probably wait maybe towards the end of the year and see if you can pick up something lower. I just can't guarantee that we're going to see prices drop that far off a cliff. They may, but we may be over last year's numbers and be positive towards the end of the year. Then all those crash bros are going to be scratching their heads, and all those people listening to the crash bros are going to go, what's up, bro? Oh, it takes 4 more years to crash? Okay, anyway. One other positive note about the Austin area is the fact that unemployment rate did drop. So it spiked up in March and down in April it came to 3.4. So we are seeing a little bit lower unemployment numbers. Now there's been lots of news with all these tech layoffs, but it looks like some of these people are losing their job and then finding a new job. What do you think on that? So what do you think about the housing market? I think we're just gonna see kind of the sputtering of the market the rest of the year. I don't think we're gonna see massive increases going into June. We could see some increases, but I think overall, we're probably gonna end the year, probably like what I've said from the very beginning, flat. What do you think?